So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about recovery housing and our certification program here in Kentucky. Also wanted to say I'm well aware on the agenda. I'm in front of the best part, which is the break, right? So I'm going to try to be respectful of everybody's time and get through. Leave you all a little time for questions if you have any. Also, I'm excited to be here. Both my father and my aunt are graduates of Union College. My family's from just down the road in Barberville, or if you're from there, it's Barville. Uh, so thank you guys so much for inviting me. So without further ado, so first, if we're going to talk about a certification process for recovery housing, we need to say, what is recovery housing? So we have a couple of definitions for you. I don't think I'm going to read them to you. There's the first one, and here's our longer one. But really, as captured in the statutes here in Kentucky, basically, if you have a place that folks are living together and they're acting as a family unit to support one another as they recover from substance use disorder, more or less that counts as recovery housing. So it doesn't matter if you call it sober living, transitional living. You know, if the point is that folks are trying to support one another in recovery, it counts. So here's who we are and what we do. The Kentucky Recovery Housing Network started in 2020 because we wanted a quality standard, we being the Department of Behavioral Health, a quality standard that was objective to use for grants, basically. So if we wanted to expand access to quality recovery housing, we wanted to have some recovery housing grants for that. And we needed to know who were the good ones and who were the bad ones, basically. So that's how we got started. What we do, we are the state affiliate of NAR, which is the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. And NAR publishes a best practices standard for recovery housing. And it's important to note NAR doesn't certify houses. So it's almost like a franchise thing. So we're it locally. It's also important to note that Kentucky has, as you know, other speakers have mentioned, Kentucky is pretty friendly to the idea of recovery and treatment for substance use disorders. So we are the first state where NAR has ever allowed the NAR affiliate to be housed within the state government. That's primarily because folks in recovery don't always have the best experience with government agencies, and so they took a big chance on us, and we appreciate that. So we offer a certification program. That slide used to say voluntary certification program. It technically still is, I suppose, but a couple years ago we had House Bill 248 that made our certification program mandatory for most recovery housing in the state. We recognize that Oxford houses are really great recovery housing. They don't have to be certified. They have their own charter, and we don't mess with them. They're over there if you want to talk to them. Also, the Recovery Kentucky centers were exempt. They have chosen to get certified, so we are certifying those, but statutorily they're exempt from that. We also operate a forum for which largely because we started in COVID was like a Zoom meeting, but we're trying to transition to in-person meetings. So we were in Lexington yesterday for a local thing, and then our certified operators in Bowling Green are trying to put something together. So we would like to have more of that where folks are actually meeting in person. To tell you a little bit about NAR, it was officially founded in 2011 when some groups recognized that recovery housing was the Wild West, and this was a vulnerable population that people were taking advantage of to make money, and so that there needed to be some sort of objective quality standard. Those groups that got together, some of them go back to the 70s. So I mean, they have a lot of knowledge there. It's not sort of as recent as. Although this makes me realize that I'm old because I'm like 2011 wasn't that long ago, but it was. So, but they have a lot of information. So here's the mission of NAR. Give you a second to look at that. Um, and there's the vision. And we have adopted both of these. I particularly, it's important to me, the part there at the end, that we value hope, compassion, respect, honesty, responsibility, and fairness. Because I think that, that is really what anybody's looking for. What our program seeks to do is to make sure that folks in recovery are treated like human beings and valued as human beings. So, tell you a little about our certification program. What we certify is that a residence either does or does not meet the best practice standard, and that's it. So, um, I get a lot of complaint calls. If they're not certified by us, there's not a lot we can do about it right at this moment. I will talk about that a little bit more, as we go on, again, with regard to that legislation that's passed. Um, so this is not the whole NAR standard, but I just want to kind of give you a glimpse of what it looks like. So it's a little bit intimidating. We can say that, you're looking at all these and what do I have to have? And does it apply to me? Our program, we are here to help you with that. Oh, thank you. Another thing, being old, I just got bifocals and it's unfortunate. So it's a glimpse of well, we didn't advance on the screen here, but that's all right. So that was a glimpse of what the standard looks like. It's broken into the required elements that you have to have: a medication policy, a grievance policy, that sort of thing. And then we have materials that we give to you that tells you what those policies need to look like. So the next thing is that the NAR standard is based on the social model of recovery. And we have, the blurb about it, but the gist of it is it goes back to that family unit that it's not a treatment focused thing. It's folks that get together and support one another. It addresses, becoming part of a community, holding one another accountable. It's not this top down approach, but it's a peer led effort. So to tell you more about the standards, it's 4 domains, 10 principles, 31 standards, and it's broken into 4 levels of support. For the moment, those are labeled level 1, 2, 3, 4. There is a move at the national level. I think that they're going to be renaming those at some point in the future to align like this with the peer run, monitored, supervised, and service provider. But to tell you a little bit about that, here's the 4 domains: administrative operations, physical environment, recovery support, and good neighbor. So what that amounts to for the administrative operations is that you need to be a real and legal business. It just can't be, I've got a house, I'm going to let these guys get here, I'm going to let them pay me with cash, and I'm going to stick that in my pocket, and I'm not going to, you need to be registered with the city where you're in. They don't like it if you're not. Have an EIN number, so you're paying taxes. Operate with integrity. That's basically treat people like human beings. Don't cheat them. Can't take their benefit cards. Things like that. Should never be their payee in any situation to that effect. Uphold their rights. Again, you can't say you can live here, but you violate you forfeit rather your resident rights. They have rights, and you can't take those away from them. So we would also like to see, as far as developing a culture of empowerment, that the residents have some say as far as when they're holding one another accountable, that they, what we really like, that what in practice, what it means is they have a house meeting. And in that house meeting, if there's problems within the house, that, they're not, looking to the operator to solve it, but they're talking to each other first. And then, you should, of course, have a process if that doesn't work. But so the physical environment. Now, what we like to say about this is, I don't know if y'all can tell by looking, but I'm not a code inspector or anything. So I'm not going to be like climbing up in the crawl space, or getting in your attic or under the house. That's just beyond what I can do. But what we do ask is that an operator submit a document to us, notarized document, assuring us that they have had their legally required inspections, fire marshal or whomever should be there has been there, that kind of thing. And then we're just looking, does this look like a real house where somebody lives? I don't want to get into horror stories too much, but I mean, we went to one place that was like bunk beds made out of bare lumber, it smelled like Home Depot. And, we were like, this doesn't cut it, doesn't work. This is not home-like. It's not, they had little like 3-drawer, little small plastic things that were supposed to be the dressers, for them to keep their clothes, like, like you'd find at Dollar General or something, right? And we were like, you gotta have real furniture, as well. Because it's not a home. If this is a temporary place that you've stashed these people, and that doesn't work. So that's what we're looking for there. A less dire thing. We were at a house in Somerset on Monday where they're like, we promise we're getting our pool guy out here, because it had a pool, but it looked like a frog pond, right? So, we were like, we'll cover it up or do something until you get your pool guy out because it looks gross, somebody's in there. It's not, I mean, they fall in, nobody was swimming it, but it's not a healthy, healthy environment. So, so recovery supports, there has to be some sort of program. It's not just a place to stash people while you build or medicate or whatever. The folks should be engaging in supporting one another. Usually that looks like going to meetings. Again, that house meeting component. Most houses require the folks to have sponsors. And then my favorite one is good neighbor, because there's only one thing under it, which is be a good neighbor. And functionally, what that means is, talk to your folks. Well, you guys know, right? Everybody loves the idea until it's like next to their house, right? And then it's like, well, I don't want those people to live here. So you have an uphill battle to go, and that's just to enable the operator to use some strategies that's going to help, mitigate some of that. We call NIMBY, not in my backyard. So usually we recommend that folks know where they can park. If there's any neighborhood rules, maybe if you want to have quiet time hours or something like that, where they can or should smoke. It's not it seems like a daunting process, but I promise you it's not as hard as it feels like. So getting to our levels of support, I'm not going through all 31 standards. Y'all can look it up. Or, we can have a meeting about it if you want. But so the first one is peer run, which is what we call level 1. That's going to be a totally democratic recovery residence where the residents run it themselves. And Oxford House has been so successful in Kentucky. We don't have any of those. Oxford's got it covered, and we're happy to leave it to them. For level 2, that's usually there will be a paid staff member. That's usually like a house manager. They might get reduced rent or something to that effect. They may or may not be a peer support or credentialed. Level 3 or supervised is usually where folks are still in a like intensive outpatient program or something to that effect. So you're going to have a larger element of supervision. And then level 4 has been interesting for us because initially we didn't want to duplicate efforts. And because the level 4 for us was an AODE, alcohol or other drug entity. So they were licensed already, right? And we didn't want to duplicate that effort. However, what we found is 2 things. Number one, folks have PHP houses, which is partial hospitalization program, that would count as a level 4, but they're not licensed as an AODE. So they were kind of, just out there in a gray area. And then, as we mentioned, when the statute passed that required our program, that required certification, what folks did, your bad actors, so to speak, is they licensed their living rooms as IOP and then said, well, we no longer meet the statutory definition of recovery housing. So this past legislative session, we had an amendment to those previous statutes and have closed that loophole. So now they can't do that anymore. If they've got people living in their IOP, they have to either pursue an AODE or they need to change what they're doing and get certified through us. So there's graphic again a little bit that tells you about the staffing. One thing it says, it talks about the structure. We've seen people try to put recovery housing in all kinds of places. I will say that, there's a process to go through. If you take a recovery or a commercial building and then you make it residential, you got stuff you got to do. There's a change of use assessment, and we met with the fire marshal last week, and so I've learned all kinds of stuff about this. Like Van said, with the Medicaid, it's more than I wanted to know. But anyway, I will say as well. Well, we'll get to it in the certification process. So we just take a Google form application at the moment where we just get your basic information, who your contact person is, where the houses are. We'll ask you for your mission and vision statement at that time. How many people are supposed to be there, how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, that kind of stuff. Then the next thing we do is a documentation review. So when you apply, we will send you a checklist of all the things that you need to have and all the required elements. When you send those back to us, we'll go over them, and we're happy to meet with you beforehand, do Zoom calls, whatever you want to do. We'll help you with that. But we go over them. We'll send you something back so they either pass, and they never pass the first time, never ever. So don't worry about it. And don't try to be perfect ahead of time, because we're here to help you, and it would be better to just get you going. But we do a doc review at the point that we agree that your documentation and policy meets the NAR standard. We will set up an interview and a site visit with you. For the interview, it's basically your time to brag on your program. Going over time a little bit. I have to speed it up here, guys. Sorry. It's your time to brag on your program, but also to tell us about your policies and things. We had an issue, again, horror story, but so tell us about your grievance policy, right? And the guy says, well, it's the policy you approved. And I'm like, but if you don't know what it is, then you don't have a policy. So that's what we're looking for there. And then the site visit we talked about a little bit. We're looking for a clean and safe home-like environment. The big sticking point I should mention is the NAR standard requires 50 square feet per person in a bedroom. So if you have a 10 by 10 room, it's 2 people. So what we don't want is our bad actors who get a 3-bedroom house and then they put 4 sets of bunk beds in each bedroom, and then they fill them in the garage and all, can't do it. And the other requirement is 1 full bathroom for every 6 people. So sink, shower, toilet. So, 2 bathrooms, you can have up to 12. Where we are now, we started in 2020 with 8 applicants. We're now up to 172 certified residences, 67 certified beds. This slide is out of date, by the way. I made it on Friday, and we had site visits on Monday, so it's already over. But so we're up to about 165 applicants now, I believe. Benefits of getting certified, you can say that you're a quality place, and that you have had that independently verified. Also, Van talked about Find Recovery Housing Now, KY. That's how you get on the website. So we will connect you up with them. It's also required by statute at this point, unless you're an Oxford House Recovery Kentucky Center, a religious nonprofit directly affiliated with the church. But if you take that religious exemption, you cannot take referrals from treatment, DOC, anybody, basically. So everybody asks about medication for opioid use disorder. And the evidence indicates that it works. However, it's not part of the NAR standard. So I'm not going to tell you have to take it. You may be opening yourself up to, lawsuit based on the federal law. Because if someone, is on it and you tell them they can't live there, they could say you've discriminated against them. So I try not to say too much more about that. You can email us at kyrecoveryhousing@ky.gov. That will go to me and my staff person. And that's it. I've got 15 seconds for questions. Sure. So per the statute, we are actually required to do a site visit annually, but our certification is good for 2 years. Also, currently it's free. We're sort of in the process of developing a nonprofit partner to take this over, so it's not run by the state. But so right now is just a good time to get in because it doesn't cost anything. But yeah, it's good for 2 years and with an annual site visit. Anybody else?
Do you have a list of all the recovery houses that are certified that you can send out to everybody so everybody knows the ones that are certified?
We have a list we update quarterly on the website. If you Google CHFS KRHN, you'll get there. We don't, how to say this, for the public facing list, we don't put the addresses on there, but it's the name of the operator, city, county, and their contact information, because we don't want people using that as a sort of hit list of sorts. And I think this lady over here. We see that so I'll just give you an example. In one community, the way that has played out is, well, and I'll also say in the revisions to the statutes, they added that if you are certified, you are presumed to be compliant. Yeah, in some places they've passed city ordinances where they are looking to see. I mean, that's part of the statute is if you don't get certified, then the city and county governments are empowered to take legal action to make you close. Right. They can't, because like I mentioned before, no, it's like a franchise, right? So they can't say you are or not certified. What they can do is tell us like, hey, we have complaints about this place, and then we open an investigation, and that's what our partner will be doing as well. But it's not it's not the best in the sense that their staff person called and said how to interpret all these things, and I'm like, well, it takes a year and a half to really get up to speed on. I can't do it in a 20-minute Zoom call. So anybody else? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I think I didn't go too far over. So again, I appreciate you all letting me be here.